Hey, what's going on everyone? This is Mike Kollin at MikeKollin.com. Okay, so today we're going to talk about the church the religious or even spiritual experience versus the world of science. Now, there's one thing I noticed a long time ago. People that were very, very logical, they have this way of thinking. I'm going to call it a belief that essentially if they can't do it, if they don't hear it, if they don't see it, if they don't experience it, well, then it must not be real. Okay, so before I go into that, I'm going to bring up a little video clip that I just clipped from YouTube. But before I go on that, I just want to remind you guys there is a 50% off on my book package, the Ultimate Package, my book Crack the Female Code for Men and for Women. Both of the gold books, one is called Why Men Just Don't Get It, and Every Woman's Battle, the Need for Love and Emotional Fulfillment. And the code that you use for that is Christmas. So go to MikeKollin.com. And for women, just go up to the Women's tab at the top, click on it, there'll be a drop down, and click on the ebooks. Okay, so over the years, we've all bumped into people who said, oh, I don't believe that, and their answer, if you were smart enough, now being trained and taught in NLP, it teaches you to go, well, why don't you believe it? To ask questions. And it invariably goes, well, I've never seen that, I've never heard that, I've never experienced that. Like, well, have you ever tried? No. Well, then how do you know? Well, I didn't read it in science class. It wasn't in a book. Just because something is printed in a book does not mean it's real, but a lot of people believe that. So in NLP, we learn about linguistics and languaging and something called convincers, like what will convince a person. And some of it is literally, well, if it's in print, it must be real. There's so many people that believe that, yet it's like, well, have you ever experienced that? Did you see it for yourself? Well, no, but if it was written in a book, it must be real. No, actually not. So here's another thing I noticed. Science will look at religious or spiritual people, and it's like you have to be perfect the very first time it's spoken. And mind you, they don't have to study it, read about it, learn about it at all, and they're going to be the judge. About something they've never even began to educate themselves on. They just said, oh, that's hooey-fooey, I don't believe it. And yet, and believe it or not, but I actually think this is a smart thing. Science, here's the really kind of cool thing about science. Science can make what they call a universal law. Like, this is the way it is, that's it, gravity does this, that's it, that's universal law. And when you go to middle school, high school, and college, when you take a test for this, you have to check mark that answer. Otherwise, you fail and you don't get your degree. And then 10 years goes by and they're like, oh man, we were completely wrong about that. I can't tell you how many times on YouTube in the last 5 years alone, Neil deGrasse Tyson has said, man, we really got that one wrong. And I'm like, yeah, and yet you would fail people if they didn't answer it the wrong way. Now, here's one thing that I do think is really cool about science. It's essentially what I just said. When they realize that they're wrong, they will go in and say, okay, so-and-so 50 years ago, or, the great scientist that we've all worshipped, apparently he was quite wrong. In fact, absolutely wrong on this. And now what we have learned is this, and now this is the new universal law. But scientists do not give religion or spirituality the same flexibility. As Neil deGrasse Tyson will quote the book of Genesis, something he actually doesn't understand. In fact, I would say 90+% of Christians have no clue what the book of Genesis actually means. So he'll come along and say, oh, well, a book that was written so many years ago didn't know anything about astrology or astronomy or the planets and this and that. And like, oh yeah? Well, guess what? 2000, and he said this 2,000 years ago. Not 2,000. How many years was it? Yeah, was it 2,000? Yeah, I think it was 2,000 years ago. So you could say the same thing about science. Like, well, guess what, Neil? Science didn't know jack about the universe 2,000 years ago either. In fact, the books that they wrote about the universe were completely wrong. But you won't hear him say that. So it's funny, but scientists will hold the Bible or religion to this unbelievably high standard, but they don't do it to themselves. It's like, well, we were completely wrong. Okay, let's just make the new one. But they won't give that flexibility to the Bible, to church, to religion, etc. Now here's, okay, I want to make something really clear. I know I talk about a lot about left and right brain. I kind of knock the left brain. I'm not really knocking the left brain. What I'm knocking is being stuck in the left brain, which is what the book of Genesis was talking about, the tree of knowledge. See, when you get stuck in your logical brain, you're disconnected from more information because it's the right brain that receives and opens up to receive more information. The left brain, so all you have is what's in the box. Like, well, this is the book we've been studying for 100 years, and this is the truth. Like, well, wait a minute. Don't you want to keep searching? So I'm leading up to something here. I'm going to pull the video out, the clip I took off of YouTube. I'm going to add it in here soon. So I'm leading up to something. I want to show you something, but you have to see it in the way that it is. So I noticed a lot of my overly logical friends wouldn't believe anything if they didn't already believe it. And then I realized, like, well, where do you get your information from? Well, from the group of people that all agree on the same thing, and it's written in a book. So if it wasn't, see, they won't listen to anything that's new or anything that's been around for over 5,000 years, i.e. from the Chinese, from Buddhism, etc., etc. They won't believe it if it's not something that comes from their way, or I should say if it's something that's different. Well, if it's not already in my box, that's the logical brain, the box brain, in the box, thinking. If it's not already in there, well, then I won't believe it. So I had this friend who was like, oh, that's not possible. I don't believe that. And I'm like, oh, it's very possible. I do it all the time. He goes, oh, no, you're just saying that. So I asked him a question. I go, okay, let me ask you a question. Let's say you and I are standing side by side, and I was looking at I think I said the sun, maybe the moon. I don't know. Let's say the sun. And I told you I was going to split the sun in half, and I was going to raise my arm up and slice it down, and the sun was going to go like a million, like, I don't know, 500,000 miles apart or something, to where you could obviously see one part was to the right, one was to the left. He goes, yeah. And what if I did it and boom, it happened the minute I did that? He goes, oh, that would just be a coincidence. And I said, so you're telling me, literally, if I told you this is what I was going to do, it was going to split the sun in half, and the second I did it, that's exactly what happened, you would say that that was just a coincidence? So he said, yeah. He goes, well, I can't do that, and that's impossible. I was like, oh, so your belief system is if you can't do it, then it's not possible. He goes, well, yeah. So I said, oh, you're a Green Bay Packer fan, right? He goes, oh, yeah, since I was a little boy, born and raised. I was like, okay. So let me ask you a question. How far did Brett Favre throw the football? So I just Googled it, and it said there was a competition, and he threw it 75 yards. And by the way, at the time, he was the starting quarterback for the Green Bay Packers of Wisconsin. And I go, can you throw the football 75 yards? He goes, well, no, of course not. I go, could you do it when you're in your 20s? No, he goes, I don't even think I could throw it 40 yards or 50 yards. I'm like, oh, so obviously then they must be lying, because since you can't do it, nobody else can either. This is a very childish mentality that we're dealing with. If you think we got out of the age of, well, you're different, your skin color is different, your hair is different, you come from a different country, you speak a different language, you're weird, you're wrong, you're bad because you're different than me. We have never left that. We still live in that we still live in that mentality. And here's the worst part. It's the scientists that are doing it, the educated ones. So here's what I'm really ultimately talking about. We essentially have left brain and right brain people. What I'm coming along is saying is like, look, be both. Use the higher intelligent brain, not the lower intelligent. Use both. They both have a benefit, they both have a purpose, and they absolutely benefit each other. The right brain gathers the information, the left brain analyzes it and goes over it and pulls it apart. And it's kind of like pulling a bicycle wheel apart to see how it works, and then how do we put it together? Actually, the second part, putting it together, is the right brain function. It's putting the pieces of the puzzle back together. The left brain dissects it and pulls the pieces apart and studies each piece at a time. They both have their purpose and they're both good. What I've been doing with my clients, especially men, because this is really something that men need to learn, is teaching them how to function in the right brain, because most men are very left brain. They're stuck there. Our schools don't require very much right brain training. It's very minimal at best. And our men in society and women are becoming this way now because of technology and because of taxes and because of work. And all this stuff is left brain, left brain, left brain, left brain. All I'm saying is the benefit is to be balanced using both and to expand both. And yet, it's scientists that are the ones that are limiting this. Oh, it's all about left brain. If it's not about left brain, then it must not be real. I don't believe in it, and it's fake and hooey-fooey. Neil deGrasse Tyson is constantly knocking religion, Christianity, the Bible. And so I would like to say, so, sir, do you have any educational? Of course. I've got my doctorate degree, and I don't know where he got it from, MIT or wherever he got it from, which is great. It's awesome. And then he goes and talks about the Bible as if he had his doctorate degree from some biblical university somewhere in the United States or in some country. And if you would ask him, so where did you get your biblical degree, your doctorate degree from in biblical studies? Oh, well, I didn't. Oh, your master's? No, I didn't get that. How about your bachelor's? Well, no, I didn't actually study the Bible. So then what makes you the authority? Well, it's different. Meaning it's not left brain. That's why a lot of people say, well, I don't see God, I don't hear God, I don't know God. Yeah, because you're trying to find God under a microscope. God's massive. You've got to pull your head away from the microscope and look around and see the bigger picture. God is a right brain experience. Number one, you're literally looking in the wrong direction. Number two, you're not even trying, and just be honest about it. You made up your mind, no, I don't want to do that. Hey, that's fine. Then just say that instead of ridiculing people, ridiculing billions of people on the planet, saying, oh, they're just dumb, or they're just, oh, what's the word? Not hooey-fooey, but it's kind of like the same, like airy-fairy, you're just, okay, I can't think of the word right now, but you're just dumb because you do that. And if you come along and do something such as predict something or tell them something that they're thinking in the moment, then there's no other way you could know, or something that happened to them 5 days ago, or something that's going to happen to them in another week or something, they'll say, well, I don't know how you did that, but there's got to be a scientific explanation. And that's their answer for everything. It's either just a miraculous coincidence, or it's got to be scientifically proven somehow, but I just don't know how to do it. Maybe in 1,000 years we'll figure it out. See, if you keep your eyes closed, you're never going to see it. You need to open your eyes and take a look. So number one, you're going to notice things that are on every level, from the second dimension, the third dimension, and even on the fifth or spiritual dimension, or however you want to put it. So for a long time, Buddhists, etc., and not just Buddhists, but other people have talked about the yin and the yang symbol. Well, Joe Rogan's talking here about I don't know if the guy's a scientist, I don't know what, yeah, I think he's probably a scientist, but he's talking with this guest who's an expert of something, and they say, hey, take a look at this. Now I want you guys to go ahead and listen to this clip. I'm going to show it twice.
Have you ever seen, they just recently made images of quantum entangled photons? Take a look at what this looks like. Quantum entangled photons look like a yin-yang. Like, exactly. Oh, that's it. That's a quantum entangled photon. Oh my God. Yeah, are you kidding? God. So maybe someone knew this thousands and thousands. Have you ever seen, they just recently made images of quantum entangled photons? Take a look at what this looks like. Quantum entangled photons look like a yin-yang. Like, exactly. Oh, that's it. That's a quantum entangled phone. Oh my God. Yeah, are you kidding? God. So maybe someone knew this thousands and thousands of years ago.
Okay, so let me tell you a couple things before I get back to that clip. When I was a little kid, for years, I was probably 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, I used to have this dream over and over. It would kind of go in stages where I'd have it every night for probably like a month or 3 weeks or something. And then the next year it would do it again and do it again. It went on for a while. It was terrifying. The dream was I was locked up or zipped up in a suitcase, And the suitcases were outside on the front and side yards by the sidewalk, and they were up on like a string, kind of like where you hang your clothes to dry. And I was in one of them, and I remember I figured out how to unzip it from the inside, and I got out. And everyone that was around the world that was walking around free were and forgive me, I don't mean this in a negative way, but they were the retarded people, like literally retarded. So many, many years later, when I got a lot older and I went through my awakening, I realized the dumbest people on the planet are leading the world. Our world leaders are the people that are in charge, that are actually in power. These are the dumb. Like, okay, let's take Neil deGrasse Tyson. He's not outside of science. The guy, he doesn't even have any common sense. It's like, so on the one hand, he wants us to believe that he is the world expert on spirituality, religion, and the Bible. And it's like, can we all just be honest for 1 second, stop lying? That guy doesn't know jack shit about the Bible. He doesn't know jack shit about God. And yet he speaks with such authority, like he's been studying the Bible daily, religiously, going to biblical colleges to get his master's and doctorate degree in biblical studies. But he hasn't, and he doesn't. Where I come from, we call people like that know-it-alls. And it's not a compliment.
Have you ever seen, they just recently made images of quantum entangled photons? Take a look at what this looks like. Quantum entangled photons look like a yin yang. Like exactly. Oh, that's it. That's a quantum entangled photon.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Are you
oh my
kidding?
God. So maybe someone knew this thousands and thousands of years ago.
What did they say? Quantum entangled what? Who's been talking about that for thousands of years? Spiritual people. There's a lot of people online, whether it's personal development or spiritual people or healers, that have been talking about quantum entanglements for hundreds, if not thousands of years. This is nothing new to us. Even there's relationship coaches and therapists that are talking about entanglements. Be careful of your entanglements, etc., etc. Even grandmothers talk about this. Well, what do you think we've been talking about? Well, like some of them flat out say, we call it quantum entanglement or quantum entanglements. It's getting entangled with someone else's energy. So here they are, just now in the year 2024, finally going, oh, wait a minute, what's going on here? Quantum entanglements. Oh, we can see it. That looks just like the yin and yang symbol. Okay, what a coincidence. It's not a coincidence. You really think that Buddhism and energy workers have been working with and using the symbol of the yin and yang symbol, which looks exactly like quantum entanglement? No, that is quantum entanglement. That's what the energy is talking about. A lot of energy gets stuck, and the idea is to free it so it can begin to flow again. Enter Mr. Logical Scientist. But Mike, notice the negation. But Mike, logically, how do you do that? You don't. It's not logical. It's not linear. It's non-linear. That's how you do it. They're using the wrong brain. You don't use the logical brain to do healing work. The right brain, the emotional, the feminine energy is the nurturing, healing energy. Science is in preschool in comparison to spiritual people. But Mike, I'm a logical either-or person. It's black or white. Either you can do it or you can't. No. Do you really think that getting a physics degree and becoming an astrophysicist anybody can do? Well, of course not. It's very hard, Mike. Exactly. Do you guys realize how hard it is to become an actual astronaut, to actually get launched out in space? Like, it's less than it's probably less than 1/100th, or maybe even 1/1000th of a percentage of human beings out of the 8 billion people on the planet that will ever actually become an astronaut that gets launched out into outer space. Do you realize numerically that's much more difficult than winning the frickin' lottery? Yet with spiritual people, they're like, well, then just do it. There's levels to it. You have to develop it. You have to get better and better and better and better and better. Same thing with a neurosurgeon. Do you think everyone that graduates with a bachelor's degree suddenly gets to open up a person's brain and do neurosurgery? No. Not only do you have to go to college for 8 to 10 years to get your doctorate degree, you then have to continue your studies to eventually become a neurosurgeon. Oh, but Mike, but it's black or white. No, it's not. It's not like one day you push a button and you turn it on. You have to develop. It's levels of. It's like a professional sport, boxing, kickboxing, racing. You have to increase your learning and your development, and you have to practice to get better and better and better and better and better. That doesn't mean an F1 racer is going to win every single race. Same thing with being a quarterback. Just because you're one of the best in the world doesn't mean you're going to win every single football game or every Super Bowl. Doesn't mean that just because you're a professional quarterback that you're going to win every game. Hey, you might lose 6 games this year. Being an energy healer or a spiritual worker is very, very hard. One thing I will say, you get a massive benefit if you use all the parts of your brain versus one side. Back around 1990, 91, something like that, Pastor Rex would come out and he would talk about these scientific discoveries that they made, like when they found quantum particle or an electron. They knew it was there, but they couldn't see it because they didn't have a powerful enough microscope. And what happened was it would leave a trail behind it. So it was kind of like smoke, like a car leaves a trail behind it. And they said they knew it was there because they saw the residual, but they couldn't actually see it. But until they actually saw it, something happened. I think it was the quantum particle. It was the one where when the scientists, what they do is when they discover something new, they'd have the scientists ping a quantum particle at it from this angle 100 times at this speed and record every time, like what happens when you do this, because we want to understand this thing. Well, he got really bored after a while. I don't know if it's 500 times or 1,000. Then he had to do it from another angle, a different speed. So regardless, after a while of doing this for days and days and days, he got really tired. He got really bored, and his brain just goes, man, wouldn't it be cool if I imagine it going to the left, and when I pinged it, it went to the left instead of straight forward like it normally does, and it did. The scientist got so confused, they thought, oh, maybe the calibration is off for my microscope or whatever the tool he was using to record this. So he recalibrated it, tested it. Okay, yep, it's good now. And he did it again, got bored again. And he started to think about that. That was kind of weird that it did it when I thought that thought, and it went to the left, and then it did it right that moment when he was thinking it. I was like, wait, what's going on here? So then he recalibrated it, did it all again, made sure the tool was working correctly. And then it did it again every time. Then he thought, well, what if I imagine it going to the right? And then it went to the right. And he was like, whoa, what is going on here? And what was in the news back then was scientists were having nervous breakdowns because this went completely against scientific universal laws. In other words, the left brain is the external brain. Everything's outside of me, and I don't affect anything outside of me. We have to go outside and explore the way things already are. What suddenly happened for the first time in the history of science is, wait a minute, are we influencing molecules, atoms, and electrons and particles on the outside? With our thoughts? Yes. That's what the spirit world has been telling us for thousands of years. There's a reason why they call it metaphysics, because it's about science. So Pastor Rex just flat out said, he said, science is way, way, way behind spirituality or behind religion. They're literally in infancy, maybe preschool at best. When I was taking the NLP training, there's these patterns called swish patterns and belief change patterns. And okay, so like on my screen, if I go to the upper left and I click on the button, the yellow button, it'll shrink it and it'll shrink all the way down to the lower right. Well, guess what? That's the same swish pattern we learn, except we usually put it in the lower left and have it expand, like you push the green button and it swishes all the way up to the top and over to the right. There's an actual pattern in NLP that does that. Then there's other things. And after all, I raised my hand about 3 weeks into the seminar. I go, hey, wait a minute. This is exactly like a computer screen. And Dr. Tad James looks at me and goes, exactly. Computers are listen closely, a rough copy of the human brain and nervous system. They're still far behind. So I was like, wait a minute, so these techniques that we're using come from the computer? He goes, no, the other way around. The way the computer is designed comes from the human system. So one thing you learn when you do these techniques, Dr. Tad James one day said, hey, this isn't new. Your brain and your nervous system has been doing this since the day you were born. You've got anchors, you've got swish patterns. These are all NLP words and techniques, by the way. But your brain and nervous system has done that. All we've done is come along and discover, like, okay, like, well, why is it not working? Or why are you depressed? Or how come you overcame your depression? Like, what's the difference? And we started discovering stuff, just like looking at a car, like, well, why isn't your car working? Oh, your carburetor's clogged up. You just got to clean it out, put a new seal on it, and you're ready to go. Most things that humans make, probably, I even almost want to say all things that humans have made, designed, or even created, are just rough copies of what's already inside us, such as our elbow. Well, look at your door. The hinge is a rough copy of your elbow. The television is a copy of your eye. It's just inverted. Instead of looking out, you're looking at the screen. We'll go to the back of that. There's a cord that goes out to gather the information, just like your brain. Your eyes are connected in the front, but they have nerves that go all the way to the back of your brain, which is the visual cortex, which is the visual processor. I mean, look at gas-powered cars or machines. They have a lung. They have to breathe oxygen, just like lungs. There's a lot of things that are very rough copies of what we already are. So the whole thing about the quantum entanglement, it's kind of funny because Jesus was teaching his disciples to become healers. He literally told them, now go out in pairs unto the world and do the same unto others. Meaning, not only heal them, but teach them how to heal. So Jesus back then, he understood what quantum entanglement was. They may not have used the word quantum, but he understood what entanglement was on an energy level, or call it a spiritual level. And yet here we are 2,000 years later. Science literally is just now in the year 2024 coming to this understanding of quantum entanglement. And now they can see it and I'm like, wait, that's just like the yin and yang symbol. Oh, it's just a coincidence. Look the other way. Look the other way. They just simply won't admit anything when they start to realize, like, wait a minute, this has been taught for thousands of years in Buddhism and other spiritual teachings. They won't admit it. But you can't deny it either. Science is proving spirituality. They're just really far behind. The thing about science is, it's kind of like this. Okay, so they want to look at everything under the microscope. It's kind of like, yeah, but what if we want to look out to the stars? Would you use a microscope? No, you would use a telescope. That's the right brain. I believe that we are going to and already are beginning to use nonlinear science, and they are making discoveries and will make the greatest discoveries over the next 10, 20, 30 years. They're going to be seeing the bigger picture. They're going to see how the pieces of the puzzle fit together. You know, it's time that we let go of this. See, the scientists right now that are in charge are very small-minded people. They're left-brain people. And they're stuck there. And because of that, remember the left brain, it's all about control. It's time to let go of control. It's time. Okay, here's the mentality. It's like a little child. It's like a narcissist. I'm right and you're wrong. No, I'm right. You're wrong. I'm right. It's this whole little thing like, well, if they're right, that means that we're wrong. So we got to prove that they're wrong. Even if they're not wrong, they'll make stuff up. They'll lie. They'll cheat. They'll deny. They'll act like something didn't happen when it did. It's childish. It's the dumbest people on the planet leading the world. How about if we get rid of the either or mentality, the either I'm right or you're wrong mentality, and why not study and work with the energy healers who are really good at what they do and find out what they're doing and come together as one so we can begin to expand and develop even more and more instead of it saying, no, I'm better than you, I'm smarter than you, I'm this, I'm that, and you're nothing, I'm going to push you down. Yeah, as long as you're blocking people, holding people back, pushing people down, intimidating people, yeah, they're not going to thrive. But why not let them thrive? Like, why does that terrify you so much? Because your whole life, not just you, but the whole life of science is about right or wrong. Either I'm right or you're wrong. Either or mentality. So they would have to let go of that either or mentality and open up to the larger part of their brain and begin to work with people instead of against people. And that's what's been going on with the world for centuries. People are working against people, and it's stopping progress. That's it. That's it right there. There's nothing more. If we could just work together, if we could just learn together, if we could just learn from each other, it would benefit all of humanity. Peace would literally spread across the world. God bless you guys. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I want to wish you guys a Merry Christmas. I hope you guys are doing well. If you like this video, please click the like button, click subscribe, go ahead and make a comment. And if you want, as always, there's a PayPal link right there in the description box. You can go ahead and make a donation simply by clicking that link. Alright guys, God bless you. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.